right. Okay. Can you hear me out there? Okay. I think that the thing that we need to focus on first and foremost is that the mainstream media is a disease. They've been lying to us for years. They were designed to lie and deceive, spread disinformation, to protect those that wish to keep the American people in the dark about everything that happens. Now I'm starting to sound like Dr. Fauci with the polyps in my throat from going down on Bill and his wife or his husband or something like that. There. All right, so you go over information, you find information on the internet, and we know that largely that Fauci has been he's close to 80 years old. He's an old cunt, and he's been there because he is either compromised, okay, or he's a sociopath and they know it, or he's just like super in too deep, and then they're going to be like, if you do anything, or if you don't go along with this, or keep these lies, under cover, we'll kill your whole family and all that other stuff. Like these things that there's a lot of people out there that are compromised. We don't know what he is. Well, we certainly know who he is because he's a rock star. There's shirts out there. The picture of him with his hand on his head. A WWFD. What would Fauci do? It's changed from what would Jesus do to what would Fauci do. Okay, and if you've heard any of my interviews with Clint Richardson and author, documentary, filmmaker, radio show, the Corporation Nation host for many years, who brought a completely new flavor to the truth movement, to the point where everybody, or not everybody, because I think he's awesome. I'm never going to stop thinking that he's awesome. And the reason why he's a pariah in the truth movement is because most people in the truth movement have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. They don't understand how the system operates. They don't understand how they don't understand how the world operates, that it is a corporation, and that when we're born, that we become employees of the corporation. That the states are sub-corporations of the United States Corporation, and the United States Corporation is a sub-corporation of the Crown Corporation. The banking city of London, the Vatican, Washington, D.C., they're all city-states, and they all have different rules that they go by. They all have different rules that they go by. And so as we move further down the line, people in the truth movement have no idea what they're talking about, largely because a lot of these things just don't even apply anymore. We talk about founding fathers, we talk about all of these things, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and all these other things, okay? And largely they just don't even really apply to the common people. We're commoners. We are not the people. The people are those of the posterity of the founders, guys like, believe it or not, Barack Obama, John McCain, Bill Clinton. All these people that you've seen as presidents are of the posterity of the founders of the United States. But what does that mean? It's a corporation. It was made into a corporation eventually. Maybe that was the plan. Maybe there were some people in the beginning that had good intention. We know that they were very smart people to a certain extent. We know that they obviously they were slave owners. Okay, so we can't dismiss that. Okay, we can't dismiss the whole, slave ownership. At the same time, we also have to understand how, be it very uncomfortable, truth is that, and wrong, and always will be wrong, that slavery was a thing. Owning people, having slaves, was a thing, even for black people, for well-to-do black people. They were, slave owners and slaves. Everybody had slaves. Everybody had slaves. And the slave ships that brought people from the people from Africa over were Jewish-owned slave ships. Okay, a lot of these things we don't even hear. Nobody knows anything. All we know is that through Hollywood and through the mainstream media, which is our enemy, they are our enemy. They are the enemy of the commoners. They are the enemy of anything breathing. ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS. Fox is speaking a little bit more about some of these things that are going on, but at the same time, Fox News glorifies war. They glorify so many things that should never be, should never have been, didn't have to be. World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, all of this, Gulf War, all this stuff. It was all bullshit. We were lied to about it from the very beginning. We were lied to about World War I. We were lied to about World War II. We were lied to about all of it. And the deal is that these very, very powerful entities that have always been in control, just manipulated things with their ill-gotten gains. Rockefeller, and Billy Boy Gates, the sociopathic metrosexual Billy Gates, is only what he is now because of his father's and his family's ties to the Rockefellers. Bill Gates is nothing when it comes to technology in the grand scheme. He did some coding, he did this and that, but the bottom line is that he was elevated in these areas because he was the father or the son of a lawyer who was connected to the Rockefellers. And that's it. That's all. That's it. He tried to steal the company from from Allen, the guy, last name Allen. This was on 60 Minutes. While he was being treated for cancer, Gates and someone else, they were trying to steal the company. They were trying to steal his share, trying to swindle him out of his connections to Microsoft in its early stages. And he didn't like Bill Gates, and who would? If you saw some of these early videos of this scumbag, this guy who was handed everything. I'm not saying he wasn't smart. Everybody's got the ability to learn. Everybody's got the ability to do this and that. If you're the Gates family, you've got money to be able to do whatever everybody wants something good for children, for their children, especially they bring them into the world and they have the means to be able to do these things. They do it for their children. Gates was handed everything. He's a spoiled fucking brat, sociopath, and now he's doing what he's doing, and of course he's being praised for his fake philanthropy. Well, his philanthropy, really, but we know it's fake. We know it's fake philanthropy. And we know now that he's paying all of this money, millions, 253 up to $500 million to control and silence news broadcasts all over the world. He's hired teams to whitewash his murderous, dangerous, treacherous, malicious vaccine campaigns in Africa and in India, to where it would not be able to largely be found unless you know, it's not going away. Once it's out there, it's not going away. Okay? People have it. Organizations have it. They can find it. I feel very, very confident that he's going to face the music one day. He's going to face the music. Same thing with Anthony, Dr. Fauci, who's being raised up like a deity. Okay, he's Ferguson over in London. This social distancing thing that was created by a small child, 40 million, is probably higher, unemployment. This was planned for a long time. We've spoken about this on, you know, in case you missed the BS in this new normal that they always wanted to create. And this is more of a financial heist than anything else. A financial heist to steal everything. Okay? Because in 2008, and this has been said before on this platform, in 2008, they did not do anything. They stole money. They gave the guys like Warren Buffett all this money, $40 billion. I mean, it was much, much more than just, I think, the $800 billion in the bailouts. It was much, much more than that. Others have pointed this out. So nothing was done. Nothing was done. The fraud, the corruption, the Wall Street snakes, and the parasites in Washington, D.C., on the left and the right, continued to do all the things that they were doing prior to that. Okay? You can get on Prime Video, you can get on a lot of these platforms, and there are numbers of documentaries that point out all of the Wall Street fraud and all of the connections to Wall Street, and the predictions that were made and the things that happened. People losing their homes. They blamed it on the people that took out loans on homes that they could not afford, and that was the reason why everything fell apart. The prime, the subprime loans and things like that. So the media again twisted it and turned it back on the commoners. That Biden, of course, you know, with his connection to the credit card companies, how he looted him and his family. That's just one. Okay, that's just one of Joey Boy's, Uncle Joe, the sniffer, the toucher, the sexual predator. Okay, seems like a lot of the sexual predators come right out of the left. Okay. And of course, I mean, that there are these scumbags on the right as well. So the bottom line here is I go back and I say the mainstream media is the enemy of the commoners. That's what I am. That's what you are, most of you. You're not the people. The Constitution really doesn't apply to you. But at the same time, you can say, all right, well, nobody owns me. All right, well, you know, this is something that was foisted upon you. Your parents didn't know that when the birth certificate was a banknote and all that other fine, happy shit. All right, so I feel the same way. But in their minds, in the eyes of this fictional creation called the United States of America, this legal fiction that has been created by these bloodline families that have benefited parasitically off of the rest of the commoners around the world. Of course, the U.S. has been used as the launching pad for all of the military endeavors. The banking city of London, the Masonic banking city of London, and the bank, the fake fiat currencies and all those other things that are going on. Brexit. All those things. What do we know about Brexit? One group of people wanted to get away from the European Union, and now what does it all mean? Where does Brexit go from here? They knew that this was coming because it was planned. They knew that the global pandemic that they were going to create was going to come, and it was going to change everything. They control the media. It just does not stop. It does not stop. They control the media, and it does not stop. The media, the mainstream media, is our enemy. BBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, NIH, CDC, WHO, FCC, IMF, they are all our enemy. They are not here to make us well. They're here to destroy us. They're here to get rid of us. And that's what Bill Gates was talking about. If we build these vaccines, then the population, and then they turn it around. Well, if people are healthy and all of these other things, they have less children. No, happy people that love each other they create more people so that they can all love each other in bigger families, like the Waltons of old age, of the old day television shows. All the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 children in one family. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But it's become less and less of a thing because economically, if people can't do it, they can't do it. But on the left, it seems like with all the welfare and all the things that they give to the poor, just enables them to continue to have kid after kid after kid after kid, to have more money from the government, which, that's going away. And we've seen examples of this in the past where they talked about getting rid of welfare, cutting welfare or something like that. You would see it on one of these, again, the enemy broadcast on your local ABC affiliate or NBC or CBS affiliate. They would talk about, cutting, the possibility of cutting welfare. And the next thing you know, you just see a lot of these people who just sit on their fucking ass all day, get out into the street or whatever, maybe they were paid back then too. Who knows? But it's all about control. The right gives corporate welfare to guys like Warren Buffett, $40 billion in 2008. And again, nothing was done. Nothing was done to curb because they did it in 95. Clinton and Summers and all of these other maggots in the Treasury. A lot of people think that this has been heard through the truther, through the exposing, the crimes of the New World Order, that the Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express. Well, guess what? That's bullshit too. That's bullshit too. This was created, the Fed was created knowing that it was going to do exactly what it does today. And it was not just a group of people that said, we're going to create this bank and we're going to lend it to this government. There's a little connection there. There's a little bit of truth to it, but largely it is not a private entity. It belongs largely to the IMF and the banking city of London and all those other, this is just a network. This is an absolute network that murders, sends drugs into communities to kill populations off to, look at the opioid thing. That was done. They knew exactly what it was going to do. And DC was in lockstep. The politicians were in lockstep with all of it. They're in lockstep with Big Pharma. More killers that are working on all of these supposed injections for people to save them. No, sorry, that isn't happening. One thing that I saw just this morning on that abomination, called Twitter, Thomas Massey, senator from Kentucky, wrote out there like, who's gonna get a coronavirus shot when it gets out there? And it was just like 65 or 70% when hell freezes over. There was only like maybe 10% of people that said that they were going to get it when it comes out, and then that in between was after other people take it and see, because what we're going to see here, and I don't want to speak in absolutes because I see a lot of people speaking in absolutes. I see David Icke speaking in absolutes, saying that this is what they're going to do. This is what they're going to do. I have a feeling that obviously a lot of this stuff's being monitored. A lot of these podcasts are being monitored. We don't live in a society. We live in a technocracy already. It's already a technocracy. So everything that's being said, everything that's being tweeted, everything that's being Facebooked and Instagrammed and all these other things that are out there are being monitored. And all the information's being aggregated for them to decide what they're going to do. Whether they're going to, and there's a very good possibility of this, that they get to a point where they just say, and this is a real thing, because there's so many people out there now that are saying that are online that are really tagged into the Matrix. And by the way, I heard within the last 24 hours that Keanu Reeves is filming another installment of the Matrix in some shape or form, which would make sense at this time. So what they could legitimately do is just say, hey, we haven't found anything that's safe, and make it look like all these other people that said, they're going to shoot you up with something that's going to do this. They're going to shoot you up with something that's going to do that. They're going to shoot you up with this, that, and the other thing. And it's going to do this awful thing. Okay. I said on the last transmission that they're really, really pushing a flu shot, really pushing flu, really pushing flu, because I think they know that they're not going to be able to do this, or that they're not doing the coronavirus vaccine. There's too many people that are coming out now, even people that are vaccine proponents of it. Douchebag out of Philly, Philadelphia, that made some kind of diarrhea vaccine or something connected to Children's Hospital. These sick kids are in Children's Hospital because they've been injected with vaccines at whatever age, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, leukemia, all these other things. Mikovits already pointed it out. Judy Mikovits already pointed out. She already pointed out who Tony Fauci is. He's a lying, manipulative killer who hid information and manipulated all of this. Manipulated the AIDS, manipulated all of these things. Okay? He even said back in the 80s that there was going to be a vaccine for AIDS. Never created. Why? Because they knew that they couldn't. Or maybe AIDS is a lie and was a lie from the very beginning to a certain extent. A manipulation. People were dying. Certain groups of people were dying. Judy Mikovits said that eventually it was in the blood supply. That's why Arthur Ashe. That's why I forget the small child that died of AIDS because of a blood transfusion. I forget his name, but she mentioned his name. I forget what his name was, but anyway, if you go back in the podcast, you'll find part 1 with Brian Rose, London Real. Part 2, Mikovits, back to back. In there, check them out. Go to London Real, watch the video. Whatever, just research this. They've been doing this for years. Retroviruses, injecting people with animal proteins, hijacking the immune system, creating blood clotting abnormalities, creating all kinds of stuff, chronic fatigue, all of this other stuff caused by injecting things into our bodies that should not have ever been injected or crossed that barrier. Okay? They knew that it would cause these things. They've tested it. It was in the works the whole time. Back in the 1800s, in the early 1900s, go back even the 1700s. I had Patrick Jordan on here talking about all of these different individuals throughout time that were destroying people's lives by scraping their skin with pus or whatever, you know. People looking to hurt people while telling them that they're looking to make them well. That is what the American Medical Association has been since its inception or soon after its inception. Knowing that there would be money to be made, that they could do whatever they want to do whenever they wanted to do it. And everything that we've been told about polio has been a lie. Everything that we've been told about Sabin and Salk has been a fucking lie. The virus, the virus, the virus, the virus, the virus, the virus. It's always about the virus. Always about the virus. Look at what coronavirus did to... No, look at what the overreaction to the coronavirus did. Look at what the overreaction to it has done to lives, to destroy lives. So we're going to listen to some of this, and we're going to watch this shameful... We're going to listen to this shameful shit that they just keep on saying about Fauci and all of these other organizations. The Daily Show guy bringing him on. What are we going to do, Dr. Fauci? Remember, respecting flattering titles is a bad thing. Okay? If you're a Bible reader, it's a sin to worship flattering titles. And that's all our world is filled with. Flattering titles that we should not respect, not be disrespectful, but we don't have to respect you because you are a doctor or you're a lawyer or you have money. This is where everything falls apart. Let's give a listen to this here.
In 10 weeks, 40.7 million Americans have filed jobless claims. That's more claims filed in the previous 178 weeks combined. Think of it this way. If you took every man, woman, and child living in New York City, LA, and Dallas and multiplied them not by 2, but by 3, you'd have about the same number of people who have filed claims since the start of this. Ever since the days of World War II, U.S. unemployment has risen and dropped slowly, gradually, revealing recessions, periodic descents followed by ascents, not one of which touched double digits until April. when the U.S. recorded the largest one-month percentage increase in our history. A shock to the American economic system.
Media doesn't focus on that.
They knew they had to get here early because last week the pantry ran out of food. That line stretched, as you say, at one point for half a mile. It stretches still right now. Hundreds at least still in line. Immigrants mostly there who will not get money from the government. Their restaurant and their construction and cleaning jobs have all shut down. If they can't get food for their families here, they may not have food for their families.
Bay Area medical teams say hospitals have not been overwhelmed by COVID-19 cases, but they have been surprised by something else, a sharp rise in suicides.
The numbers that we've seen are sort of unprecedented. We've never seen numbers like this in such a short period of time. I mean, we've seen a year's worth of suicide attempts in the last 4 weeks.
One thing that really needs to be understood about the deception of this event is that the lockdown, the masks, are there to... It's like when it starts, now they can say, well, the lockdown stopped 2 million people from dying in America. The lockdown, the masks stopped all these people from dying, when we know that that's just bullshit, and it's been said that it's bullshit. Even Trump got on with a Michael Savage and said, you know, what we did stopped 2 million people, 2 to 3 million people from dying. And of course, Savage, who was, you know, just not going to question anything. You know, he talks a big game on his show, but then he doesn't really follow through. He would say to people, "Oh yeah, you know, we got. I'm not going to just worship the president. You know, I'm not going to just worship the president." And then when he gets on there, he doesn't say anything. Side story. But Trump is a guy who, even when years ago when he talked about running for president, he always talked about how everyone else was doing such a horrible job. And they were, but they were doing it on purpose, because a horrible economy still means money for the elite and the scum. Others suffer, and the rich and the Wall Street and everything, their lives don't change. And so when Trump was talking about that years ago, he always insinuated that he would do a better job. So, all right, so you get in and you win. You win over Hillary, which I believe the whole time was meant to happen. I really believe that. The plan was that he was going to win. Hillary was not going to win. Just like Hillary was not going to beat Barack Obama. And Barack Obama was always going to beat John McCain. It's all predetermined. All those, the 2 years, and all the campaigning and all the money spent on the American political process. It's shameful. It's a shameful thing with everyone, with the commoners to a large extent. You know, there's a lot of people out there doing really, really bad. Even when there's no so-called pandemic going around, there's a lot of people out there that rely on other organizations for food and money. And so Trump, I'm gonna let's try to do like a little a reenact or like how did this happen, fly on the wall type thing. Organizations came to him and said, listen, the economy, it's been being held it's being stabilized by just, like a pair of vice grips and some friggin' crazy glue, because that's what it is. They have the electronic money. They can keep printing all the electronic money for welfare. There was one day or one event there where all the cards stopped working, and there was a near riot in certain areas when the welfare electronic EBT, I think they call them, the EBT card. But when I was young, when I was a child, we had food stamps. My father was a vet, World War II vet. He worked. He was an injured guy, hip injury, and we collected what they called food stamps back in the day. Okay? And I think that's necessary for certain things, certain events. But again, it's something that, as you are a citizen or property of the United States corporation, you get these things, you take them, and that makes you complicit in the corporate scam. So largely, Trump was told, listen, this shit's going to crash, dude. Trump wouldn't want that to happen on his watch. Something big needed to happen to cover up for all the malfeasance, all of the corruption, all of the theft, all of the things that were not rectified, all of the things that took place in 95 when Clinton and the snakes in the Treasury decided to deconstruct Glass-Steagall. Investment and commercial banking was separated at one point, which was Glass-Steagall. And then when they deactivated Glass-Steagall, knowing that they wanted to bring economic disaster, blame it on the commoners, that they'd be able to do that. So the investment in commercial banking collided, and then it opened the door. There were the gray areas that could be taken advantage of, the subprime thing. So we're talking, 95, 96, 10 years, a little over 10 years later, the 2008 financial crisis. Who's the guy that was the Treasury guy, the real Paulson, I think his name was, another ex-Goldman Sachs snake, leech, parasite, tells everybody, if we don't pass this bill, there's going to be chaos in the street. And they're holding things together now. Don't get me wrong. They are holding things together now. But they're also doing other things, and we're going to talk about that. So there's going to be horrific issues if this bill doesn't get passed. So they pass it. Everybody gets bailed out. The Tea Party, the rise of the Tea Party. They saw, that this group of people understood that they were being ripped off, they were being stolen from, all that other shit. Okay? So now, with this virus, they've got plausible deniability. It's always the virus, the virus, the virus. Trump has the virus, the virus, the virus. 2 million people would have been, but, now it's only 150,000, which those numbers are completely skewed because just recently the CDC released that 6% of the deaths were 6% died only with and of this virus, which that number, all that information is just bullshit too. But they slowly come out with information. They slowly start putting information out there because they have to. They have to do it. It's part of the feng and the shui and it's always like they have to tell you what they're going to do, or they have to tell you what they've done. So they've been lying about the entire thing. We know that. I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's a financial heist. They're stealing money. Trump is going along with it because he understands that, and this is part of his, his makeup, that he wouldn't want to get blamed for a financial crisis. Of course, without the virus, he would have said, well, all this stuff kind of built up over the years. It wasn't just me. I tried to put it back together. I'm just trying to think of like what he would say. But he wouldn't want that on, his, that to fuck him over. So now he's got the plausible deniability of the virus, and that continues. So largely, that all kind of continues. And we get to the very, very horrific reality that the mainstream media are just garbage. And I don't believe that it was an accident. I don't believe that Trump just came along and just became, everybody's favorite pick. And I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. I don't sit around thinking about what he's done or hasn't done. Okay? I just don't. I didn't vote. Okay? I voted for Al Gore when I was starting to become, like I should start doing this. But it said the same thing as like, all these people that, my brother knows or whatever, they watch football on Sunday. Looks like they have a lot of fun. Maybe I'll start checking it out. I don't hate football. Let me check it out. It's the same thing. It's all about being, it's like a tribal thing. It's all, that's what the left and the right is. It's just all about divide and conquer. Of course, football is just a, bread and circus is what it is. It's just bread and circus. It takes the man and distracts him from evil. It takes the female, which is the, females are man too. They're just the, the yin and the yang of man. Clint's pointed that out a number of times. Females are just the female version of man. They don't call a female horse. They just call her a horse. All the horses are over there. Well, which one are female? Oh, they're horses. Okay, you'll figure it out. But of course, that's another divide and conquer tactic. So mainstream media is the enemy. Fake news has always been. We've always been lied to. Vietnam, the whole deal. Just presidential elections are just them putting their family members in, or bloodline family members in. Are all related. There will be no voting. I voted for Gore. I voted because I didn't like Bush. I couldn't believe, I thought I knew something. Like Alyssa Milano thinks that she knows how the world operates. Mrs. Charmed, little Miss Charmed. Their craziness, their insanity is pushing people away from them. And where do they have to go? They either go to the right, or they just decide that they're not going to vote. I mean, I'm just not going to participate in it. Think what you want about me, but I'm just not going to participate in it. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous lie. And America is a lie. That doesn't mean I want to go burn shit down. Right? I don't agree with America. I don't agree with war. I don't agree with the right on war. I don't agree with the left on whatever is the biggest thing for them at the time. I don't care. I care about the divide and conquer aspect, the divide and conquer side of it. I want people to understand that that's what this is. It's a financial heist, and it's being used as an end game tactic by the enemies of creation, the people that want everything for themselves. Bill Gates doesn't care about you or your family. He doesn't care whether you live or die, but it'll help you die. We can't talk about, what was it with the Obama stuff, with the Obamacare, when all that was kind of vomiting out into the ether. And then there's Bill Gates that said, death panels, and you can't have those. You can't have those conversations. So he was for the death panels, just like he wants you all to be part of his death panel, just like all the young women over in India that the India government allowed to take place to get them injected and paralyzed, destroy their lives, all that lovely, things that Jesus wouldn't do, but Fauci and Gates would do. The vaccine. They're like fucking retarded children that just keep saying that they're like Rain Man, Dustin Hoffman and Rain Man. Kmart, vaccine. That's all. They just love saying it. They love saying the word. It's obscene. They are obscene people. Ill-gotten money, ill-gotten gains. Trump's going along with it because he knows that if he doesn't, he's in big trouble. Okay? And for everybody that thinks that Trump is going against the New World Order, like Alex Jones has said so many times, he's fighting the New World Order. He's draining the swamp. And again, I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. This is just reality. If Trump was fighting these powerful entities and going against them, he would not be alive. He would not be alive. And then people will say, well, there have been many attempts on his life. There's been many attempts. Oh, yeah? Really? I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. If he wins again, the cities are going to burn. Because that's what the plan is for America. Civil war. I hate to be like pretty absolute about that. I don't want to be absolute that they're absolutely going to, vaccination campaign. I just think that they need to keep pushing this thing, the money and everything, all the money that's being spent and looted and spent and looted. It's just a big looting job. But in America, people are sitting on their asses, whether they're collecting unemployment that is going to go away, and then what? They haven't generated this second stimulus. Most people only got the $1,200, and then if you lost your job, And in some cases, if you weren't working at all and your unemployment ran out, you could just apply for unemployment because you couldn't work because of the Stroke Me 19 virus. So this is Cloward Piven. This is just the looting and looting and looting until there's nothing left. Until there's nothing left. And this is the insanity of it all. It's just really, really super nuts. Let's listen to more of this. You heard that they said the Bay Area hospitals were mostly empty, but there's this more staggering thing going on. Suicide.
Has shocked even longtime employees. Casey Hansen has worked as a trauma nurse at John Muir Medical Center in Walnut Creek for almost 33 years.
What I've seen recently, I've never seen before. I've never seen so much intentional injury.
The trauma team here says they are mostly seeing young adults die by suicide. They are worried about the mounting effects of loneliness and job loss as this quarantine continues.
The social isolation has a price.
Gavin Newsom is a fucking killer. Whoever the mayor of San Francisco is, that was probably decided well before Gavin Newsom left the mayor shit or the mayorship. Is part of it. They're killers. They're responsible. This lie, this overreaction is responsible for all these. Fauci and Gates, Newsom, Cuomo, de Blasio should all be, if there's a Super Bowl this year, they should be hung during halftime. How did we get here?
Dr. Fauci, America has changed so rapidly
March
in the
12th.
last week. When is life going to get back to normal? How long is this going to last?
Well,
you know, Nora, we don't know how long it lasts. If you look at what's happened in China, they went way up and they're starting to come right down now. The Korea curve is peaking. It's starting to kind of flatten out. So you usually measure in a matter of several weeks to a couple of months.
Don't go to crowded places. France is trying to close down restaurants and cafes and bars.
Yeah.
Should that happen here in the United States?
You know, every
I'm not
single
going to
day
answer
we
you
meet
outright.
with the task force and we take a look at what's going on. And you don't want to make a pronouncement that no one should ever go into a restaurant.
Blow Bill
I think
Gates.
that might be overkill right now, but everything is on the table. We're faced with a real challenge. You can't stay shut down forever. So it's going to have to be a balance between containing the potential resurgence, which we will hopefully have the capability of doing at the same time as we march forward to some sort of normalization and reopening not only our country, but the rest of the world. Because if you look at what's going on, so many other countries are trying to do the same thing we're trying to do. The question is, needed to do it prudently and safely in the context of our ability to respond when you do see these bit of resurgences.
And a final question. Are you breathing a sigh of relief yet?
A sigh of relief? No. I never get ahead of myself. I'll breathe every sigh. You know, as Yogi Berra used to say, it ain't over till it's over. You know, and that's when I'll breathe a sigh of relief, when we're really completely out of this, right?
Dr. Anthony Fauci, Director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure.
Flattering title. It was a pleasure.
With you.
It's a pleasure. Fauci's public face.
Our next expert is Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Tony knows what to do.
Dr. Anthony S. Fauci.
Tony and I.
We turn now to Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fauci.
My name is Dr. Tony Fauci. I'm the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at NIH.
I sent $4 million to Wuhan to continue research that was it was banned here in the U.S. So we sent $4 million over to China so that they can continue with the gain of function virology that we could not do here. What we're trying to do is create a not a killer virus, but just one that will allow the elite criminal elements of our world, some call them the Illuminati, to steal everything and try to cover up for their crimes that they have committed financially as they steal and loot everything in sight while we kill and paralyze children in India and Africa. I know that it's not a really popular topic, but I'll be glad when all people are paralyzed and it's just me and Bill Gates on a gay weekend somewhere with his beard and my wife and my family living large and living the way that we should with only about a 500 million people, like the Georgia Guidestones has written about. You're just going along with it. We're just taking it in. I'll be glad when it's all over and then the vaccine kills and destroys lives, because that's what I've worked for my whole life. I covered up AIDS and I created drugs and things like that gave people worse diseases, and then we just called all that AIDS too, even though it was a drug inflicted side effect.
Even celebrities like NBA superstar Steph Curry.
Dr. Fauci.
Hey, Steph.
See Dr. Fauci
Hey, Steph, how's
as
it
the
going?
crisis's MVP.
I love it when you're draining those threes out there. You're as good at what you do as good as what I do.
Thank you again for you and your entire team protecting all of us.
Except for Trump.
Plenty are grateful. You can join Fauci fan clubs. There's Fauci footwear. Even fancy Fauci food. Donuts, in this case.
Donuts.
You can buy a Honk for Dr. Fauci yard sign. Or you can take a nap on your I Heart Fauci throw pillow. You can ponder whether to go outside while wearing your What Would Fauci Do t-shirt. Or you can stay inside and light your Dr. Fauci prayer candle. And remember Shepard Fairey's famous Obama image? Well, Dr. Fauci inspired others to copy it, giving us a new way to look at hope.
Fauci's power base, AIDS. You might remember I was heavily
George
involved.
Rebecca Bush called Dr. Fauci a hero, and we all subscribe to that.
I think of Dr. Fauci. Probably never heard of him. You did, and heard him. He's a very fine research, top doctor at National Institute of Health, working hard doing something about research on this
covering up all of the AIDS things that we've done to people.
I came up with the idea that we should hold a special session of the Security Council on HIV/AIDS. I was told by everyone, including my own staff, you can't do this, it's not done, it's not in the UN Charter. And I said, but AIDS is a security issue because it's destroying the security, the stability of countries.
I call to order this first meeting of the United Nations Security Council in the 21st century.
Man,
when
bear
10
pig
people in sub-Saharan Africa are infected every minute, when 11 million children have...
It was the first time that the security...
See, and this is the horrific thing, how they create all of these organizations. And they do it because they have to control the narrative across the board. Just like the American Cancer Society and all these other things. They have to be able to control the narrative going forward. And that's what all of these things that they've done, everything that they've done. From Al Gore talking about this. Maybe he doesn't even know. But then again, he was the vice president. So somewhere along the line, he may or may not have been briefed on the fact that AIDS has been a deception, but we need to, all this money. Again, somewhere in this documentary, it said like $600 billion has been spent on AIDS. No vaccine created out of that, but because a lot of that money was stolen. And here's Man Bear Pig, Al Gore
Security Council debated on something that was not, let's say, war and peace.
When a single disease threatens everything from economic strength to peacekeeping,
that was a breakthrough because it opened so many doors, and presidents, prime ministers say, oh, it was debated in the Security Council, this must be a serious problem.
When I came to Congress, my first statement on the floor was I'd come here to fight HIV and AIDS.
Nancy the Parasite Pelosi. That's what this woman is. Parasites are eating her brain. Okay. And she is a prime example of how American politics is an absolute fucking joke, because this woman has no credentials for anything. And again, flattering titles mean nothing. She is married into one of like 3 or 4 of the most powerful families in California, and of course they have ties to all of these other organizations. Okay, and that's how they control California. That's why Gavin Newsom is the mayor of San Francisco, and then he becomes the governor. Okay, all of these people, Brown, Governor Brown, he did 2 stints of governorship or controlling the ship.
As the president arrived for his State of the Union speech, everyone expected him to issue an ultimatum to Saddam Hussein. They were not prepared for what came first.
1,000 points of light.
Today on the continent of Africa, nearly 30 million people have the AIDS virus. Yet across that continent, only 50,000 AIDS victims.
The birth of PEPFAR, PEPFAR, 2003, $90 billion spent to date on PEPFAR. I'm not sure what that is. I'm going to look that up. But there's Georgie the Bush, hanging a medal around a much younger cunt, Fauci. Probably in I don't know, maybe it was 2003. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that would make sense. That was when, right after the 9/11 fraud and the lie that was 9/11, and now we're just 9/11 every day here.
Only 50,000 are receiving the medicine they need.
So we need to get more. We need to put more of an emphasis on this so that these people can make us look like we're helping them with their AIDS, helping them, but we're actually killing them. And that's that's the big joke. That there's a number of people out there, large portions of people, that think that these things that they were doing were actually going to eradicate AIDS. No. There's no eradication. And if they can help it, there's never going to be any eradication of coronavirus, because this is the coronavirus medical complex. And there's the paper trail, the patent paper trail, which is, I'm going to play. A second, did I jump for that one? Hold on. I'm going to play that at the end here. David Martin, but I just want to kind of jump into some of this just to kind of give you an idea of Fauci's long criminal history exposed, but not just his, all of the people that, this network of people that behind the scenes are actually planning genocide while making it look like they're doing humanitarian work.
Ask the Congress to commit $15 billion over the next 5 years, including nearly $10 billion in new money, to turn the tide against AIDS in the most afflicted nations of Africa and the Caribbean.
The president announced the initiative in Washington and raised the hope that earlier treatment and prevention would soon lead to the beginning of the end of AIDS.
Few could have imagined that we'd be talking about the real possibility of an AIDS-free generation. But that's what we're talking about. That's why we're here.
The ultimate tool will be a vaccine.
There he is.
And
Scientists are making great progress.
Good morning. Well, I am here today to make it absolutely clear. The United States is committed and will remain committed to achieving an AIDS-free generation. We will not back off. We will not back down. We will fight for the resources necessary to achieve this historic milestone.
Creature of death. In 1984, Tony Fauci said, an AIDS vaccine is just around the corner, I swear.
Finally, as you, I'm sure, have read in the papers, given the fact that we now have the virus in our hands, it is quite possible, in fact, it's invariable, that we will develop a vaccine for AIDS.
36 years and 565 billion later, and there's no, I guess thankfully, right, there's no vaccine for AIDS, but we're going to come up with a coronavirus vaccine in 6 months. Oh, Corona finally got me. It's finally got me. It's taking over. It's taking over my immune. It's taking over my immune systems. Doctors need 3 qualifications to be able to lie and not get caught. I mean, hold on. I wanted to read that. You sons of bitches. Doctors need 3 qualifications. They need to be able to lie and not get caught, to pretend to be honest, and to cause death without guilt. And that was written by Gene Froissart, Froissart, and that was, and his lifespan was 1337 to 1405. Okay, I don't even know who that guy is, but that's, I mean, this is how far back that we go with this whole doctor thing. I'm a doctor, see. And I'm going to cure your dis-ease, okay? I am a doctor. And this is how we're going to do this. It's like trusting Bill and Ted to cure your dis-ease most excellently. So let's see what we got next here. This is a pretty long.
Why do you believe that HIV does cause AIDS? Because that's all the information that I've been given.
Because we've never been told anything different. We have, we didn't heard it.
Because
I don't know if you heard that, but the question on the street was, why do you believe that HIV causes AIDS?
That's what the scientific community has told us.
Scientists are supposed to observe, experiment, and reason from what they observe. They're not supposed to grab hold of an idea and cling to it and adjust everything else in their perceptions to fit that idea.
I happen to be one now of a few people who was there literally from the very first week that this was recognized as a new disease.
Let's talk about HIV.
Right.
When did people first realize that people were getting HIV and then AIDS? That was in the early 80s, I suppose.
Answer.
Why did it take scientists so long to figure out what was causing HIV and then how to prevent HIV from becoming AIDS? Why did that take so long?
Well, I'll answer your first question. We first became aware of it in a report of the MMWR from the CDC on June 4th of 1981, followed by one in July 5th, 1981, of the first cases from Los Angeles and then from New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. I don't think at all that it was a long time before we found out what it was. The first cases were recognized, even though it was around probably...
Dr. Fauci, let me interrupt you. Another question that the audience really wants to ask. How long have you been a total fucking cunt?
10 years before. In the summer of 1981, the virus was discovered in the spring of 1983 and proven to be the cause.
Proven. There you go.
By Francois Barré-Sinoussi and
was the Nobel Prize awarded to people who...
Yes. It was discovered by one group in France, but proven definitively to be the cause of AIDS by Bob Gallo here when he was at the NIH.
Yeah. Did they both win the Nobel?
Bullshit.
Francois Barré-Sinoussi and Luc Montagnier won the Nobel Prize. Bob Gallo did not.
Good afternoon, ladies and
His
gentlemen.
buddy. April 23rd, 1984. I don't know who this friggin' hag is, but she's gonna say something really profound.
First, the probable cause of AIDS has been found.
Oh, really?
A variant of a known human cancer virus. Second, not only has the agent been identified, but a new process has been developed to mass produce this virus. Thirdly, with discovery of both the virus and this new process, we now have a blood test for AIDS. With the blood test, we can identify AIDS victims. We now have third been developed cancer virus.
Margaret
the cause
Heckler.
of AIDS has been found. First, the probable cause of AIDS has been found. A variant of a known human cancer virus. Second, not only has the agent been identified, but a new process has been developed to mass produce this virus. Thirdly, with discovery of both the virus and this new process, we now have a blood test for AIDS. With the blood test, we can identify AIDS victims with essentially 100% certainty.
You know, it was a political proclamation of scientific truth. Robert Gallo successfully lobbied Margaret Heckler, who was then the Secretary of Health and Human Services, to proclaim his view of what caused AIDS to be absolute scientific truth. And she went on with him in tow and announced that. The conference was held before any of Robert Gallo's papers were published, therefore before any other scientists had a chance to review them and look at the evidence and see if he got it right or wrong. And it was also done right when Gallo had patented the HIV antibody test. So they made sure that his patent rights were protected first, then they did the press conference, and then, before Gallo's papers appeared in print, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services decided from now on we are only going to fund AIDS research that assumes that Robert Gallo's virus is the cause. We are not going to fund research into any other possibilities. Therefore, the scientists who might have wanted to critique Gallo's papers would not be able...
Right. So basically, this is the lie that we've all decided on, and this is how we're going to move forward.
To do so, at least might have going to fund research into any other possibilities. Therefore, the scientists who might have wanted to critique Gallo's papers would not be able to do so, at least not with anything supported by the federal government, which is virtually all science in this country today.
When Bob Gallo proved that it was the etiologic agent in 1984, we had a diagnostic test approved by the FDA in 1985. So the test was developed, it was gone through the appropriate validation and approved by the FDA. That was really quick, from literally less than a year from the time that it was shown to be the virus that causes this disease.
Just because Bob Gallo gets up, takes his sunglasses off and says, "Gentlemen, you discovered the cause of AIDS." That's all we had. New York Times article, CDC report. That's all we had. That's not enough. New York Times,
this disease.
All right, so this
Just
is
because Bob Gallo
Kary
gets up-
Mullis, Nobel Prize winner in chemistry. This is the guy who created the PCR test and said that it was not supposed to be used for infectious disease, and which is exactly what they're using it for now, to do all these so-called tests that everybody believes that they're infected, even though they're like, "I feel fine. Hand me a beer and a joint."
Takes his sunglasses off and says, "Gentlemen, you discovered the cause of AIDS." That's all we had. New York Times article, CDC report. That's all we had. That's not enough. That's not enough to that is not sufficient to like publish even a meager little scientific paper somewhere. That isn't enough for scientists to believe some inconsequential fact about some star 50 light years away. That's certainly not enough to treat at the cost of billions of dollars a year, and at the cost of a lot of lives and anguish, and just destroyed. Lives have just been totally ruined by this thing, on the basis of some flimsy little statement made by a guy who's known to be a crook in lots of other ways.
There you
He
go.
lied about a whole lot of other stuff. Why we trust him there? He was a witness in a courtroom. We wouldn't trust his testimony. We've caught him in too many lies. You don't trust him anymore.
Peter Duesberg challenges HIV equals AIDS.
At the University of California in Berkeley, Duesberg became a world-renowned retrovirologist in the cancer program and the first man to map the genetic structure of retroviruses like HIV back in 1970. His honors include membership in the National Academy of Sciences due to his discovery of cancer-causing genes. Having researched retroviruses for over 30 years, some have called him the world's foremost expert in retrovirology. Dr. Duesberg was somewhat skeptical of Gallo's AIDS virus announcement.
I wasn't madly impressed by it, because what else would you expect from a person like Gallo, who had studied retroviruses all his life, that he would say retrovirus is causing AIDS? That seemed to be the first coincidence that made me wonder whether that was an authentic claim, or going to be an authentic claim. But I would say it was not a surprise that he would say that. He said it before, that it would cause leukemia or things like Alzheimer's disease, neurological diseases, and it failed. So I was not too impressed that this was going to be a winner now, and it would have been for the first time that a retrovirus would have been pinned down as a cause of a human disease, or even a disease in wild animals.
For 18 months, Peter Duesberg studied every scientific publication on HIV and AIDS he could get a hold of. When he finally published his observations in Cancer Research in 1987, he stood alone against the tide of popular opinion and the government-funded AIDS industry. His position has become well known. He argues that HIV is not causing AIDS. It's a harmless passenger virus that has lived in humans for centuries without causing diseases. He believes AIDS is the result of other non-infectious factors like drug use. And ironically enough, AZT, the highly toxic medication prescribed to treat AIDS patients, actually does what the virus cannot, that is, causes AIDS itself. Though Dr. Duesberg's arguments were ridiculed by many and ignored by most, many of his colleagues studied his research and came to the same conclusion. Something is terribly wrong with the war on AIDS. Dr. Richard Stroman recalls the impact of Duesberg's arguments in Cancer Research.
It was a remarkable review, and it raised the fundamental issues about viruses as a cause of both cancer and immunosuppression, basic questions that haven't been really responded to in any meaningful way in the almost 10 years since that paper was published.
Soon other top scientists joined Duesberg and Stroman in questioning the HIV hypothesis also. Nobel Prize winners Dr. Walter Gilbert of Harvard and Kary Mullis, who invented the PCR. Dr. Charles Thomas, a former Harvard professor, organized a consortium of 12 signatories to address the issue. They would in time become the Group for Scientific Reappraisal of the HIV/AIDS hypothesis.
We started out by writing a letter to Nature calling for a reappraisal of the evidence for and against the hypothesis that HIV did in fact do all these things. And there were about 10 or 12 signatories to this letter, and it was rejected, even though many of the signers of the letter were certainly reputable people. We tried Nature magazine, and it was ignored. Then we tried the New England Journal, JAMA, and so forth, and Lancet. In each case, we were rejected. They would not publish this letter. It was only 4 sentences long. It read, it is widely believed by the general public that a retrovirus called HIV causes a group of diseases called AIDS. Many biomedical scientists now question this hypothesis. We propose a thorough reappraisal of the existing evidence for and against this hypothesis be conducted by a suitable independent group. We further propose that critical epidemiological studies be devised and undertaken. That is certainly hardly a bomb-throwing letter, but nonetheless they would have none of it. And being rejected made us angry, so we decided to extend the list of signatories. So it jumped to 30, and then to 50, and then to 100.
So just the control that this lying fucking system has, that shithead cunt Fauci just keeps saying, well, Gallo. He's a liar. He knows he's a fucking liar. He's a piece of shit. And like so many others, should be hung by the neck until dead at halftime of the next Super Bowl, if there is one.
100. And then by 1994, up to 600, 188 of whom have advanced degrees. We publish a newsletter. We have a website. So it's a fairly large organization now.
Though the scientific establishment has continually ignored Duisberg and the group for reappraisal, some individuals are having second thoughts. At the San Francisco International AIDS Conference in 1990, Dr. Luc Montagnier, who discovered the virus originally 6 months before Gallo's claim, made a startling statement. HIV might be harmless. Against his own interest, Montagnier's statement should have been earth-shaking, but the conventioneers paid it little attention and went right on talking about new antiviral drug treatments. Why is the scientific community...
See, so the same fucking thing's happening now with coronavirus that happened with this so-called HIV. You got people that are saying, numerous amounts of them, saying that the complete opposite of what Fauci and what the people are saying in the U.S. People, cunts, with a K, capital K, and a Z at the end. Not the same as the things that you are familiar with. And I hate to be so crude, but we are in times now where these people are disgusting pieces of shit, and they're killers. They should be treated. They're terrorists, right? Remember the terrorist? If you're not with us, then you're with the terrorist, right? They should be handled as such. They should be treated as such.
Ignoring the dangerous ramifications of this essential question about the cause of AIDS. Do we have an answer?
Yes, in retrospect, we certainly do. Too many people are making too much money out of it. And money is much stronger than truth.
AZT, the untold story.
When I was looking at this data with our team the other night, it was reminiscent of 34 years ago, in 1986, when we were struggling for drugs for HIV, and we had nothing. And there was a lot of anecdotal reports about things that maybe they worked, maybe not. People were taking different kinds of drugs. And we did the first randomized placebo-controlled trial with AZT, which turned out to give an effect that was modest.
In 1987, the war on AIDS took another drastic turn for the worse. AZT, a toxic chemotherapy deemed too poisonous for cancer treatment, was approved to treat symptomatic and asymptomatic HIV patients in an attempt to kill the virus that causes AIDS. AZT is a DNA chain terminator, a poison designed to randomly destroy the DNA synthesis of reproducing cells. It was initially developed to treat leukemia victims, but after animal testing, the FDA determined that it was too toxic for use in human beings and banned it.
So it may have helped with leukemia.
In 1987, when the AIDS scare hit its height, the FDA was pressured into approving the drug for use for the first time in human beings, even for people who were healthy and showed no sign of AIDS. AZT is highly mutagenic, meaning that it destroys the genes in cells and has been shown to cause cancer in rodents. It targets the bone marrow, where B lymphocyte blood cells are being made. These are the very cells an AIDS patient needs most for immunity. AZT destroys randomly bone marrow, kidneys, liver, intestines, muscle tissue, the brain, and central nervous system. Peter Duisberg claims AZT actually causes AIDS itself.
AZT does directly causing AIDS defining diseases. You know, AIDS is a lot of the things, but it doesn't cause Kaposi sarcoma or anything, but it does cause immunodeficiency. It was designed to do that. It was designed to kill human cells. In fact, the manufacturer said.
So the virus that they said causes the immune system to be destroyed is actually caused by the AZT and not by this virus. And so here we go again. Here we go again. We're seeing a reboot, in a sense, of HIV and what they did back then. And we're seeing that happening now, right?
That specifically, but it does cause immunodeficiency. It was designed to do that. It was designed to kill human cells. In fact, the manufacturer says that specifically that it can cause AIDS-like diseases. And the manufacturer, that is Spirits Wellcome, says it is often difficult to distinguish adverse events possibly associated with pseudovidin or pseudovidin administration, which is AZT, from underlying signs of HIV disease. In other words, even they acknowledge, not just Duisberg, that AZT causes AIDS or AIDS-defining diseases.
Whenever you have clear-cut evidence that a drug works, you have an ethical obligation to immediately let the people who are in the placebo group know so that they could have access. And all of the other trials that are taking place now have a new standard of care. So we would have normally waited several days until the data gets further, dot the I and cross the T. But the data are not going to change. Some of the numbers may change a little, but the conclusion will not change.
This is a medical dictatorship. This is a fucking medical dictatorship. If, in fact, what is it, hydroxyquinone, whatever the fuck, HCQ, is working, but then, you know, it's worked for malaria, it's worked for all these other things, but now it's being decommissioned to a point where people are not able to get it because they need a specific outcome.
In his book, Poison by Prescription, journalist John Lawrenson explains how AZT tests conducted by the FDA and Burroughs Wellcome, the manufacturer, were scientifically sloppy and outright fraudulent. During the experiments, patients taking AZT became anemic, suffered low white blood cell counts accompanied by vomiting. Over half had to have blood transfusions. 20% were transfused several times. Despite a warning by FDA toxicology analyst Harvey Chernoff that AZT not be approved, the FDA was pressured by AIDS activist organizations to lift the ban, and hundreds of thousands of people began taking.
So the media preaches so much about the AZT, right? They fill the ether with all of this bullshit, and that the people, the slaves, the desperate people who are sick with something, start asking for the poison that's going to kill them.
AZT, even though AZT cannot cure AIDS and is only supposed to slow down the progression.
The mortality rate trended towards being better in the sense of less deaths in the remdesivir group. 8% versus 11% in the placebo group.
So this is 2020. So what they're doing in this documentary, and I'm going to post this in the description. What they're doing is they're using the contrast between what AZT and now him talking, doing the same type of manipulations, the same type of medical dictatorial bullshit that comes out of this cunt's fucking mouth. And I'm telling you, there's got to be some kind of divine intervention that takes out this scumbag and Gates. Something, somehow, some way. They are harmful bags of pus. They are the true virus. There is no doubt.
It has not yet reached statistical significance, but the data needs to be further analyzed.
The logic behind AZT treatment is flawed, even if one believes HIV causes AIDS. Because HIV only infects about 1 T cell in 1,000, 999 healthy T cells must die to kill the 1 cell that is infected. And this can only happen early on, before HIV becomes dormant and is still making DNA. Yet AIDS patients are given AZT for months, on into years, randomly destroying DNA in all parts of the body. AZT is expensive and costs between $8,000 and $12,000 a year, most of which is paid for directly or indirectly by the taxpayer.
There you go. There you go. Incredibly expensive, so Big Pharma makes an incredible amount of money, and it kills 1,000, it does 1,000 times, it does like 999 times more damage than it needs to just to kill this 1 cell. I'm not saying that that's even real information, but usually the poisons that they put out are much deadlier than whatever's happening in the person's body with this so-called virus that causes autoimmune deficiency syndrome.
Burroughs Wellcome, now Glaxo Wellcome, the manufacturer, has generated sales over $1 billion a year.
Glaxo. So that's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with. So this is a great documentary that I've only been able to see a little bit of, and that I wanted the listening audience out there, you know, and I am happy that there is a relatively large group of people that are downloading this, that are hopefully sharing this information. I'm but one of many people that are out there that are really, you know, I hate to say blowing the whistle on this, but there's just so much information out there that I just don't really even think that these folks are going to be able to, these bags of shit are going to be able to do anything like they say that they're going to be able to, and if they do, then
is there a very clear and provable paper trail that proves? Is there a very clear and provable paper trail that proves that the U.S. government did in fact work to help manipulate and create this latest coronavirus, and that this virus is actually the product not of nature, but of man-made manipulation? The answer to that question is yes.
Many of the things that have been postulated to be novel about the coronavirus that we're currently talking about are things that were very clearly documented in experimentation in vitro in labs going back as far as 2013 in patent applications and in grant filings.
Hey guys, welcome to the show, and today I'm speaking one-on-one with Dr. David Martin. You've probably seen him in Plandemic 2, and today we're talking in great detail about something I've been reporting about for 2 months now, the very clear paper trail that connects U.S. labs, DARPA, and the creation of a manipulated coronavirus over the past couple of decades that has ultimately led us to where we are today. Now, fact checkers will tell you all of this is conspiracy theories, but here's the problem. It's not based in theory at all. It's based in factual source documentation, black and white paper trail that's very clear. Before we get into all of our interview today, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor for this episode, ISE.media. If you have not checked out our new platform yet, please do. It is a platform for content creators who are being purged and removed from social media sites like Facebook and YouTube. At ISE.media, you're going to get the uncensored truth, and all of it, again, is factual, fact-based, and sourced information, unlike what the fact checkers are telling you. And by the way, we're running an equity crowdfunding campaign right now. You can actually own a piece of this network. Help us to build it. Help us to reach our funding goal. We are growing every single day with more than 1,000 individual investors now in the company. Be a part of history. ISE.media. Well, Dr. David Martin, thanks so much for being with me today. And I want to begin by talking about this issue that I have actually been researching now for over 2 months. And that is the paper trail that proves that the U.S. did, in fact, work to create a manipulated coronavirus, outsourced to labs in China, 6 different virology labs, and paid for development there, including the lab in Wuhan. The documentation that I have found so far, I have reported on. But you are now providing new information on this story. What can you tell us?
This is a great conversation, and one that really deserves an entire expose, because the fact of the matter is that NIH made the determination to stop gain-of-function research. And as we show in the letter that was sent to funded organizations, the one we made reference to is the one that was sent to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, specifically directed at the coronavirus architect of chimeric mutations of coronavirus, Dr. Ralph Barrick. And as we showed in the film, what the letter said was that the NIH had concluded that the work that was being done potentially was problematic. At the bottom of the letter, it basically said, since your grant is already funded and ongoing, we're not telling you to stop. Co-funded grants, funded both by the Chinese government and by the United States Department of Health and Human Services through NIAID, Anthony Fauci's organization, and through the National Institutes of Health generally. Now, here's the tiny problem. We, as a nation, in 2012, going into 2013, decided that the work that was being done crossed an ethical and potentially legal line, and we as a nation stated we weren't going to advance it. Every one of the letters that was sent to every funded researcher, both domestic and foreign, all came out with the same statement that said, you're not supposed to do the research, but ... This is a recognition that the National Institutes of Health and the National Institute for Allergies and Infectious Disease, Anthony Fauci's own organization, specifically took the will of the people and suborned it without question in writing in these letters that essentially said, keep funding. And that's where we have a tiny bigger problem, because that tiny bigger problem is that many of the grants that were going to the active chimeric coronavirus researchers, many of those grants were ongoing and evergreening grants. There's a thing called an R01, a center grant, which is one of the instruments through which the National Institutes of Health and National Science Foundation and others get funding to researchers. In many instances, these evergreening grants were ones that effectively, based on the NIH's own written statement, said, while we're going to tell you that we think your research is problematic and potentially unethical or illegal, we're going to go ahead and look the other way and allow you to do it. And that included funding graduate students who also themselves had joint appointments both in the U.S. and China.
Yes, and there is no question about that. But there is another question on top of that, which goes back, it's almost the precursor question. The why. Why was this deemed to be immoral? Why was this deemed to be possibly illegal? And from what I have seen of documents at that time, there was an honest debate going on within the scientific community of whether or not the essentially mutation or the alteration of coronaviruses to make them attach more easily to human cells was the right or wrong thing to do. Have you found that as well? Is that what that debate was over?
Yes. In 2005, Ralph Barrick made a presentation to DARPA. This, by the way, is not only a public record, but it's on his professional CV. In that presentation and in subsequent work, there was an awareness that coronavirus represented a very interesting mutable pathogen, which would allow you to potentially build, both for offensive and defensive purposes, means by which a population could be either inoculated or infected. When DARPA gets involved, obviously the funding trail becomes much more problematic. But we do know that in 2005, the United States Army and DARPA began a process through which they started manipulating the coronavirus, specifically by taking two different strains of coronavirus and amplifying pathogenicity of the virus. Now, you don't have to be a scholar, you don't have to be a geneticist, you don't have to be a medical ethicist to realize that when you begin the process of not only in your own labs, but with international graduate students present from all over the world, when you have the ability to start showing the world how to manipulate a pathogen for potentially offensive and defensive military applications, the risks that are associated with that start going through the roof. So we have a period from 2005, when we know the DARPA initiative got underway, to 2013, when Dr. Barrick submitted in grant applications information about a super pathogen, which was his chimerically altered coronavirus. We know that during that period of time, and as you know, it's overlapping the period of time that MERS came out, which was the Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome, which most people seem to forget because it didn't really land with us here. But during that period of time, we know that a highly virulent form of the pathogen was lab created. And we know that mutation was funded by and was supported specifically both by DARPA and by the National Institutes of Health.
And it's to that point, we also know something else, which is that go back even before that. Because you're right, 2005, there was a great deal of discussion about this. But go back to 2002, 2003, and the original coronavirus, SARS, right? One of the, for lack of a better term, complaints about SARS in the medical community, and certainly from people like Ralph Barrick, was that it did not attach well to human cells. And therefore, remember, a lot of folks do not remember that SARS itself self-eradicated. There was no vaccine created to get rid of SARS. It self-eradicated in a very short amount of time. And so the complaint was that this coronavirus did not have the ability to attach well to human cells, but if it were manipulated, if the spike proteins were manipulated, it could be altered to attach better to humans and therefore could be more lethal.
Not to take you further back in the time machine, but we need to go back a little further. Remember that for the decade of the 90s, going back to the late 80s and all through the early and mid 90s, Dr. Ralph Barrick's work on coronavirus had to do with rabbit cardiomyopathy. People are not familiar with that because we're not familiar with the fact that coronavirus, for the majority of the human and the mammalian evolution, has actually been more concerned of the vascular system than it has been with respect to its effect in the pulmonary system and the breathing apparatus, right? So it was in 1999, and this is important, it's 3 years before SARS, the outbreak. That 3-year period was when Dr. Ralph Barrick began the mutations of coronavirus, which included focusing on the receptor binding domains, the spike proteins, and specifically the ACE2 receptor, which is what lands the virus so neatly into both the lungs and potentially into the kidneys, where we have a high prevalence of the ACE receptor in the human system. So ironically, we don't have the evidence, and the evidence would be probably impossible to source, of the degree to which the overlap that took place between the first alterations of coronavirus in the population occurred starting in funded research in 1999, but we know that from 1999 to 2002, so before SARS 1.0, we know that humans were messing with SARS specifically around those pathogenetic links. And one of the questions that I merely posit, because it is in fact just a question,
right,
we know that the researchers who were looking at this were in and out of their own labs and in and out of caves and working with bats and all sorts of other things. That's very well documented. We don't have any way of establishing whether some of the things that humans did to alter coronavirus actually went not from bats to humans, but potentially from humans to bats back to humans. I mean, the possibility, unfortunately, in the official narrative is that everything goes from an animal to a human. At no point are we willing to hold as a possibility that some of the mutations that we see in the coronavirus may in fact have gone from laboratories to nature, then back to humans. So these are things that we don't have information about, but what we do know is we can go back to 1999, 2000, and 2001, and we can look specifically at the targets that Ralph Barrick and others were focused on with respect to the respiratory side of this pathogen, and then ask ourselves, how was it that we went through all of human history, had the evolution of coronavirus, and it was largely a cardiovascular problem, and suddenly we start messing with it in 1999, and 3 years later we have the first outbreak. We start doing more chimeric alterations in 2012 to 2015, and lo and behold, we start having abnormal and untested flu-like pathologies in 2017-18, 2018 and 19, and then we decide to start testing for coronavirus in 2019 going into 2020. The fact is, we don't have pathogenic data to show us whether or not SARS in a different form was around in the 2017-2018 flu season, which killed tons of people here in the U.S. and around the world. We don't know.
All right, so that was David Martin. That was Ben Swan, ISE Media. He's creating his own platform because, as with Brian Rose, Del Bigtree over at thehighwire.com, they are creating their own platforms because they are tired of the censorship, and I don't blame them. So I would suggest that if, going forward, any of this information is a concern for you, and I'm not trying to sell you anything, I'm just saying keep an eye on Ben Swan's work. Keep an eye on Del Bigtree at the Highwire. Keep an eye on David Martin, because he's seeing all the paperwork and the patents and what they've done. That just imagine the gall, the hubris of these people to not only patent and blatantly, openly benefit monetarily from this, and then also be pushing the vaccines and all the other things that they want to use as a remedy for this. I mean, just the absolute, just like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And what are you going to do? That type of an approach. And I will say that it's pretty brazen. It's pretty brazen approach to that. All right. So another thing that I want to suggest to you is that there's any number of platforms out there for you, for people to be able to upload videos. I think you can even live stream from this particular site, and it's called Josh Who TV. So that's JOSHWHOTV.com. I've been uploading things over there. You can actually, if you have a video, if you get a video and somebody said, hey, hurry up and, download this, or hurry up and watch this before it gets taken down. Okay. I suggest that if you go over there and you create an account, Very easy. It's free. You create an account. And then once you click the upload, you create your account. You can name it whatever. You can click upload video. So you can upload any video from your computer, but at the same time, you can do it from a file, or you can import video. And there's like a list of like 300, it looked like it was like 200 or 300 sites that you can just put the link of the video and import it directly from a BitChute or a YouTube or just, let's see, share videos from here it is, I'll show you. Very important that this information get out there and get reproduced in another location before YouTube and these obviously global organizations that don't want people to see any kind of truth. So just an incredible here's a list of all supported sites ordered alphabetically, and they're all in there. I mean, ABC News Video, obviously you got your adult sites and shit like that for you deviants out there. AOL.com, just, I mean, all you have to do is from this site, if there's a video there, grab the link of the site, bring it over here, drop it in the encoder, and it'll bring it over into your site, into your page. BitChute channel, Bleacher Report. I mean, just CamTube. I mean, everything. Like, I don't even know what most of these are. I don't even know what most of these are. I don't even know what most of these are. But the videos they have of me and saying awful accurate things of how I've hurt people over the years, and I'm actually quite proud of it. Daily Mail, Daily Motion. I'm just going by ones that I can. DLive, you can do a DLive stream. You can grab it from Dropbox. It's all in here. ESPN. I mean, it's just all in here. You can grab any video link from any one of these platforms, and then you can pop it in the encoder and it'll pull it over. And what they do, I think they do some kind of compression. So even if you put like a gigabyte video up there, I think it only uses like 50 megabytes of space. Like do some kind of like massive video compression that makes it Instagram. It just kind of shrinks it down to a small file, so you're not using a lot of space. Now, there's a lot of stuff that I've uploaded up there that maybe I don't need to be up there, but again, you can also do a live stream from here if you do choose to do so. If you want to put your mug, your lady mug or your man mug up there, and kind of speak openly and speak truthfully about these people are criminals. Fauci, NIH, the United States government is a corrupt shithole. These are parasites. And then these people that are involved in it, they only go a certain distance. Like Rand Paul will get up there and he'll say, we need to go back to school, we need to do this. Dr. Fauci, I respect you're this and you're that, but like you're not the begin all end all. And it's just like he should be saying, you're a criminal and we're listening to you. They don't want to expose themselves and speak out fully. It's always about just saying enough to not get yourself in trouble. Because there's elements here that are pretty fucked up, man. Elements that are pretty fucked up out there that are doing a lot of this shit. So, Josh, who, TV, I even forgot that already, derp.com. JoshWhoTV.com. There's plenty out there. There's so many. This is one that I use. What did I do here? I want to make sure that I've got, where's my shite? My videos. All right, so they're all up there now. I'm gonna post this when I send this video up. I'm gonna put the links to it so that you guys can watch the videos. They'll be up there. And it works like so fast. I've uploaded some. I've downloaded them from YouTube and then uploaded, and I'm thinking like, why the fuck do I do that? I'm just gonna put the link in and have them pull it. I've got this. The COVID is a product of man-made manipulation with him and with Ben Swann and David Martin. So it's all up there. The Corporation Nation Master. I'm going to get that out soon. Lethal Injection, the story of vaccination. That's Clint's first installment of Lethal Injection, and then Lethal Injection Part 2. A corruption of blood is what they do. What these vaccines do, they corrupt your blood, and you're never the same again. You are never the same again. So it's really, truly a one of those, like your life depends on it. Get this information out. Start your own thing. Do your own thing. For me, this isn't about, I'm not making any money on this. I'm just trying to do what I can at this time. I joined Twitter in 2009 just so I could get it, so I could monitor what's going on out there. And when the whole H1N1 thing started, they created a vaccination program. They injected people. Women started aborting their children and all this other shit that was going on. They had to abort the whole thing. They had to abort the entire thing that they had been working on because too many people were getting hurt. That's why I don't think that they're ever going to be able to do any of this stuff. And largely, there's just too much going against them. There's too many voices out there of people really kind of moving this information. So I think if they want to create something, then I challenge that. You go ahead and make it mandatory. You're going to see shit hit the fucking fan because people don't want it and people aren't going to take it. And there's going to be lawsuit after lawsuit. And then, of course, when the people get sick or injured or damaged or something happens, you're gonna fuck yourself and your bunch of Fauci and Gates. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.